Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. All right, well, 2022 is going to be a critical year for America. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, along with their nearly 2 million members. The fight to stop out-of-control spending in the president's Build Back Better scheme is far from over, and Congress is plotting more legislation that could hurt our seniors. The midterm elections will be a battle for freedom versus socialism. Unlike liberal groups, AMAC is America's conservative, action-oriented 50-plus organization fighting hard every day here in Washington and across the nation for our seniors. So I'm urging you to choose AMAC now. You will receive all of the great membership benefits, including AMAC discounts on hotels, travels, and restaurants, and your membership will support your conservative values. So go to amac.us/Ellis. That's amac.us/ELLIS to become an AMAC member now.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and I think we are all still in shock at what happened at Mar-a-Lago last night with the FBI raiding President Trump's home. This is unprecedented, has never happened in the history of America that the FBI has raided a former president's personal home. So reports are still coming out as to what exactly happened. We still don't have the search warrant, which I think should be made public immediately by the DOJ and the FBI so that legal commentators such as myself and others can actually look at whether or not there was a legal basis and a justification for this raid. And so as reports are still coming out, sources have told Fox News and Newsmax and others that this was predicated based on possession of classified documents that President Trump allegedly took with him from the White House to Mar-a-Lago when he left. But the Presidential Records Act suggests something far, far different in terms of enforcement historically than an FBI raid. Listen to what Jonathan Turley said about this overreach, and understand as well in context that according to sources, President Trump and his lawyers have been in discussions with the FBI about these particular documents since June. So why the raid now, and why is the left absolutely cheering about it? Watch this.
Professor, it is common for former political appointees as well as federal officials to go back and forth on these records when they decide to go back to public life. I think a lot of Americans have questions concerning why there was such a heavy-hand approach toward Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton when we know for a fact there were certain records that were destroyed, that were under scrutiny. So do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, I just testified on the Presidential Records Act and the specific seizure of those 15 boxes back in February, this is an act that is not heavily enforced. It certainly has not historically been criminally enforced. In fact, some of the most egregious cases were handled rather lightly. Sandy Berger being an example, he actually stuffed documents in his socks. And snuck them out of a secure location, right, leaving them at a spot to be retrieved later. He received no jail time and just pled guilty to a misdemeanor. He wasn't even forced to lose his security clearance permanently. It was just a 3-year suspension. So this is an act that is not known for robust criminal enforcement. So that does raise these questions as to this all-hands-on-deck raid that occurred.
Yeah.
And joining me now to discuss is my good friend Alan Dershowitz, who, of course, was also a colleague of mine on Trump Impeachment 1. And it seems like all of us who care about the rule of law and the Constitution inevitably become veterans of the Trump hoax wars. So, Alan, your response to this raid on Mar-a-Lago last night?
Well, it seems, on the basis of everything we know, completely inappropriate. They should have simply issued a subpoena. And then President Trump's lawyers would have turned the 15 boxes over. Maybe the empty safe would have been turned over. And then a judge could go through each of the papers and say, this one has never been classified. This one was declassified. This one was privileged, executive privilege. This one is lawyer-client privilege, and the rest you can have. But instead, they swooped down with no evidence that anybody was going to destroy anything. After all, President Trump was 1,000 miles away at the time, and abused their discretion by conducting this massive 30-person search.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people and a lot of the comments that I've been reading today have had a really partisan reaction to this. Of course, the Democrats largely are saying, Trump had this coming and obviously his lawyers were incompetent, things like that. And then, of course, the Republicans are saying this is the biggest injustice ever. And so this does seem more partisan driven, especially with what we know about the FBI and the FISA court and how nobody really who is honest trusts the FBI anymore. So is this just a political tactic in your view, and what will the outcome be?
Well, there are three kinds of people in the United States. There are the Trump haters, like Professor Lawrence Tribe, who will trash the Constitution, throw everything out. Here's a guy who tried to persuade Merrick Garland to indict President Trump for attempted murder of Pence. So nobody should take him or any of the people on that side seriously. On the other side, there are the pro-Trump people for whom Trump could do nothing wrong. So even if they found him killing somebody on Fifth Avenue, to use his own quote, they would say it was probably somebody else who did it. But then there's the vast majority of Americans like you and me. I come from one party, you come from the other party, but we believe in the rule of law and we want equal justice. We don't want a president to be either above the law or below the law. And what we say is the same actions that were applied to Democrats, Hillary Clinton, Sandy Berger, should be applied here. Maybe an administrative fine, maybe a rebuke of some kind. But the idea of a full-scale criminal investigation, look, here's what I think is happening. I think they have probable cause to believe that there may be some classified material there, but they're not interested in that. They want to use the probable cause to search for material about January 6th. And that is an abuse of the search warrant. And now I think we have to hear from Garland and we have to hear from the head of the FBI. They have to justify. The burden of proof is on them. On its face, this is an injustice. Let's hear if they can justify it.
Yeah. And so what would, in your mind, what would a justification be that people who are on the side of Trump can do no wrong and this search was on its face absolutely untenable? What would a legal justification be?
Hypothetically, and this is not true, of course, but if they could prove that Trump wrote some letters during the time between the election and the time of the inauguration, in which he said in writing, I know for sure I lost this election, this was a fair election, but I'm going to conspire with my colleagues and we're going to make up a story about an unfair election. That would be a fair basis for conducting a search. Look, I recently wrote my 50th book. It's called The Price of Principle, and it's all about this. It's as if I had written it about this incident. It's about how people are weaponizing the criminal justice system to serve their own purposes. It happened during the Nixon administration. I was audited 4 times, every time the government owed me money. But I was audited 4 times because I was strongly opposed to Nixon in favor of his impeachment. During the McCarthy period, I was very anti-communist, but my president of the college wouldn't write me a recommendation because I defended the right of communists. Now we're seeing the same thing happening from the hard left, people who were victimized by this in the past, but they just put their zealot partisanship over any kind of principle.
Yeah, and so well said. And we're seeing that this type of precedent does only go one way, because a lot of people, including Andrew Cuomo, surprisingly, came out and demanded a justification from the FBI, from Merrick Garland. And that was surprising to see some of the, perhaps in this instance, and we'll cabin it just to this instance, the more reasonable people like him who are wanting a justification. But then there's this question of, why hasn't the search warrant been released? Because that would show exactly what the basis is. And do you think there's an obligation now for the FBI to release that?
Absolutely. They should release not only the search warrant, but the affidavit in support of the search warrant. Now, they're going to say there's an ongoing investigation. They can't do it, but they can do what's been done in some other cases. Have the judge appoint a neutral master, say a former Supreme Court justice or a former federal judge, and have that person go through all the papers and see whether or not there was a justification. Remember that the FISA application, we now know, contained knowingly false material. And judges aren't a check and balance against this kind of abuse, because we know judges hand out search warrants like parents hand out Halloween candy. And there's not a lot of checking and balancing of excesses of the executive by the judiciary when it comes to search warrants.
Yeah, so if that search warrant is out and it does reveal that they are just looking for these classified documents, I mean, the Presidential Records Act has not been something historically that has been enforced really, at all, and definitely not to the level of criminality that everyone's suggesting. The left is just waiting to see President Trump hauled away in handcuffs. And so, if that is the only basis and they are using this as a pretext to look for other types of documents, then is that still in your mind an invalid and over their skis type of an instance, where then anything that they could possibly get is then not able to be used against him?
Not only to be used, but subject to a civil lawsuit. Under a search warrant, you can only search for the material that's specified in the warrant. The Constitution talks about that in specific terms. Now, there has been developed a concept that if you see it in plain view, you can seize it, but that wouldn't be true of a paper. There's not going to be a paper lying on the desk in which President Trump says, "Oh, I admit I made up the whole story. I lied about it. Seize it." That's just not going to happen. And so I think we're going to see a lot of litigation on this. My big disappointment is, where have the Trump lawyers been? They should have been in court by 10 o'clock in the morning on yesterday when the search was first announced, maybe even earlier. As soon as they found out about it, they should have been in court. They should have been in court this morning. Maybe they were. I don't know about it. But, lawyers have to take proactive steps. They have to prevent this from happening again. The job of the lawyer is not only to defend somebody who's been indicted, but to prevent the indictment, to prevent the search, to prevent use of the material that is obtained by the search. So lawyers have to be much more aggressive and proactive.
Yeah, and I think it really surprised a lot of people to learn that the search started at 8 a.m. yesterday, and it wasn't actually revealed until President Trump made his statement, which of course was during prime time. And so then, of course, there was this confusion of saying, well, why would the FBI wait so long? Did they want this just to be in the media news cycle? And then there is a lot of, unfortunately, misinformation from a lot of people. So where do you think this is actually headed then? Because we've seen, all the entire spectrum of speculation that Trump will be indicted in the next 2 days, hauled off to jail, and then this will be a nothing burger on the other side. What, in your estimation, is the outcome, or what should be the legal challenges at this point?
Well, as usual, it'll be somewhere in between. Either he won't be indicted the next 2 days and there won't be a nothing burger. Probably he'll be found liable for having had classified material, much the way Sandy Berger and Hillary Clinton had it, and probably will get the same kind of administrative fine, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever, just like people get when they violate election laws. And we can't apply a different standard depending on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. People say, oh, the president has to be indicted because he's not above the law, but he's not below the law. Hillary Clinton was above the law. Look, Hillary Clinton and Sandy Berger were my friends. I don't want to see them being indicted, and I don't want to see Trump being indicted. I don't want to see either side being able to weaponize the criminal justice system against their political enemies. It was a South American dictator who said, for my friends, everything, for my enemies, the law. And it was Lavrenti Beria, the notorious head of the Soviet KGB, who said to Stalin, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. That's what's going on here. The Larry tribes in the world will do anything to find a crime against President Bush, even trash the Constitution, even pull the Constitution beyond all recognition. Now there's a new campaign. If he's indicted for a crime, he can't run for president. Where in the Constitution is that? There are 4 criteria for president. You have to be 35, an American. You couldn't have fought against the Union in the Civil War, and you can't have been impeached plus the disqualification. None of those apply to Donald Trump. So of course he can run. I want him to run for president so that I can vote against him. I am not a Trump supporter. I want to vote for the Democrat, but I don't want some bureaucrat telling me who I should vote for or who I can vote for. If he gets the nomination, he should be allowed to run. If Biden gets the nomination, should be allowed to run, and I will vote for Biden again.
Well, and that's so well said, because we're seeing the utter weaponizing of all of the things that you just described. Like, for example, Ken Paxton in Texas, just because, oh, he's under a cloud of indictment, so he shouldn't run. And they try to weaponize that just to purge their candidates that they don't prefer. And then we've seen how the weaponizing of the 14th Amendment with all of the January 6th members of Congress like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and others, that they're trying to say, well, you're disqualified because you quote unquote participated in an insurrection. I mean, it's totally twisting and warping and manipulating the Constitution. And ultimately, it's taking away our ability as American citizens to have that disagreement. I look forward to voting against Biden and for Trump, but that's both you and me. We're American citizens. We should be able to do that.
Yeah, remember, Republicans tried the same thing on Clinton. They said she shouldn't be allowed to run. They threatened to impeach her on the day she was sworn in. Larry Tribe threatened to impeach Trump on the day he was sworn in. These zealots must be marginalized. They cannot be taken seriously. We have to restore the great middle in America, the middle that supports the rule of law, due process, free speech for me and thee, due process for me and thee, not just for me, but not thee. You're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, we'll vote differently, but we should share a common concern about the rule of law and due process.
And this is exactly why I so respect you, Alan, because you are one of the few that is willing to say that. You are not an extremist like Larry Tribe, and hopefully I'm nowhere like the extremists of my party. And we have to have that common ground. How do we get back? Because so many people are saying that, well, this has been, the ship has sailed.
No, it has sailed. And that's why I wrote my book, The Price of Principle. In it, I tell a story about how, for example, in Chilmark, a town I've lived in now for 50 years, since I came here to defend Ted Kennedy, a Democrat, and I've been beloved in this town. But once I defended President Trump in the Senate, I can no longer speak in the library. I can no longer speak in the Hebrew Center. I can no longer speak in the community center. Now, I'm not the loser. I can speak on your show. It's the people of Chilmark who want to hear me speak. They would oppose strongly if some Texas library said that a right to choose person can't talk in the library, or an anti-racist can't talk in the library. They'd be up in arms. But when Dershowitz can't talk in the library, they admire it. They love it. Recently, I was invited to an engagement party by a couple that we've known for years and years and years. I got a letter today saying, sorry, we have to disinvite you because a lot of the people have asked if you're coming, and they said if you're coming, they won't come. This is Chilmark, Massachusetts. This is not McCarthyite. It is McCarthyite, but it's McCarthyite in Chilmark, Massachusetts. I had the same thing happen recently. Look, I can do without parties. That's fine. What I can't do without is my ability to communicate to people who want to hear me in a public library that's paid for by taxpayer money, and that says if you defended Trump, you cannot speak to the people of this town from this library. That I have to fight against.
Absolutely. And there are so many, myself included, that our livelihood and our bar licenses, they're trying to now say just because you represented Trump, you can't even go into a courtroom and practice law anymore. I mean, this is the depth of where the partisanship is in this country, and it's disgusting because if that's the standard that your client was their political opponent and therefore you should be disbarred, or therefore you can't come speak in a public library, or therefore you are an outcast or you should be suspended and censored on social media, we won't have a country anymore.
Look, John Adams today would not be welcomed in Chilmark or in the library because he defended the Boston Massacre people. Abraham Lincoln defended people who he fundamentally disagreed with. Some of the great lawyers throughout our history have defended people and principles they thoroughly disapprove of. You think I liked O.J. Simpson? You think I liked Leona Helmsley? You think I liked Jeffrey Epstein? No, I'm a lawyer. I defended President Trump's constitutional rights, even though I voted against him, didn't want to see him as president. But that's what the Constitution is all about. That's what the Sixth Amendment is all about. That's what you do so brilliantly in your legal career, and I hope at least I do it adequately in my legal career.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for what you do and for continuing to fight the good fight. And I hope that your colleagues on the left will hear this and will appreciate that. And your book, one more time, I see you have it, and I hope I get a signed copy.
Want to support my views, read my book and write a review on Amazon, because that's the only access now I have to the public. I can't speak at Temple Emmanuel in New York, at the 92nd Street Y, at the various schools. They've banned me, but I can still write my books. This is my 50th book. I'm on my 51st book. And so I will continue writing as long as the good Lord gives me the strength and the ability to put pen to paper. And I literally mean pen to paper, because I read everything by hand with a ballpoint pen on a lined paper.
That is amazing. And may God bless you and allow you many more years to advocate and defend the Constitution, the rule of law, and for all of us who are proud to be Americans. And you're always welcome to come on my show and speak freely with all of your opinions, because agree or disagree, that's what it's about. So really appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Legacy Precious Metals is the company that I trust to give you good and patient counsel for investing in your retirement. The Biden administration has caused a financial crisis, and they have no clue how to fix it. Oil prices have skyrocketed, and when oil prices go up, not only do your expenses go up, but the cost of transportation and shipping spikes, leading the prices of goods to rise. And we are already seeing record inflation. That's the last thing that we need. Our economy is in trouble, and you need to take steps to protect yourself. If all your money is tied up in stocks, bonds, and traditional markets, you may be vulnerable. So gold is one of the very best ways to protect your retirement. No matter what happens, you own your own gold. It's real, it's physical, and it's always been valuable since the dawn of time. Call Legacy Precious Metals today at 866-528-1903 or visit them online at legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com, where you can download the free investor's guide. You can also go to my Facebook page, Jenna Ellis. I am a public figure on Facebook, and I just posted yesterday a really great interview with the president of Legacy Precious Metals, who is discussing why you need to start your retirement account even if you're in your 20s or 30s. There is always a great time to protect your retirement and invest, just like you want to protect your health over the long term. So go to Legacy Precious Metals at legacypminvestments.com or call 866-528-1903. Give back exclusively to you, his listeners. The Percale bedsheet set is available in a variety of colors and sizes, and they are all on sale. So for example, the queen size is regularly priced at $89.98, but is now only $39.98 with our listener promo code Jenna, Jenna. So order now, because when they're gone, they're gone. The Percale bedsheets are breathable and have a cool and crisp feel. These come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee, so don't miss out on this incredible offer. There's a limited supply, so be sure to order now. You can call 1-800-564-8888 8475 and use the promo code Jenna, or go to mypillow.com/Jenna. You can click on the radio listeners square and use the promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. Thank you so much to all of Mike Lindell's listeners and listeners of this podcast for making sure to support MyPillow and using our exclusive listener promo code Jenna. That's JENNA.